Welcome to this week's episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast. Our guest this week is Emma Burke of Laceeze. So Laceeze is a business that Emma co-founded, although she has bought out her founder, so we'll talk about that during the course of the conversation. But she's also recently, in January 25, been on BBC TV on Dragon's Den. So you now need to watch this episode to find out, did Emma secure her funding and what was that experience like? I hope you're enjoying the Evolve to Succeed podcast. If you do, help us by subscribing to the episodes, but also find out more about Evolve by going to evolveadvisory.co.uk. But for now, enjoy the show. Welcome, Emma, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you on the guest. Sort of been seeing some of the stuff you've been doing and how the business has been developing. So it's great to have you on the podcast, hear a bit about your story, the journey, and kind of maybe what's next and some of the lessons learned along the way.
Oh, there's a few.
I'm sure there is. So let's just go right back to the beginning. Mm-hmm. How many years ago was it? Where did the concept for Laceeze come from? Yeah. And what were the very first steps you took?
So if I go right back, it's not my first sort of rodeo into business. I had a contract cleaning company. So started life as a vet nurse, moved into a contract cleaning company business. But Laceeze came about, so I've got two boys, they play football, they played rugby, they played a lot of sport. On the sidelines of the pitch, shoelaces coming undone, either the parent or the coach or the ref has to stop and retie the laces. And it happened one evening, a boy turned up and his dad put an elastic band around the boy's shoe.
Yeah.
What's going on there? And the dad said, it stops the laces from coming undone. We're like, everybody just like looked down and watched that boy for, a good hour. And lo and behold, it did do what he wanted it to do. So really the idea came from there. Like, could we create a product that does the same as the elastic band, but has a bit of a cool factor that younger children would be happy
rather than
to wear.
A lucky band around their shoe.
Yeah. Or, some people go, oh, why not use tape? Electrical tape is an option, but this is something that can be used time and time again, and that children really wanted to use. Like, we wanted them to feel part of something that they were proud to put on their feet. So that was in 2016. And then obviously sort of prototyping and getting a product to market was May 2017.
Okay. So relatively short time frame in a year to go from that concept to product ready to ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we made a bit of an error during that stage, actually, because we had a product that we tested. It came to us as some samples. We tested it. It worked. We then went in and got the next batch manufactured. And then the kids went out on a very typical muddy, wet Sunday. And we looked down and the bands had slipped. And it was the combination of the water, the mud, and shiny silicone. When it gets wet, it just slipped off. So it was, a kind of back to the drawing board. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. So we then ended up having to make the actual sort of surface area of the band bigger, but we put ridges on the inside, which actually was then what allowed us to get a patent on the product, because before it was just a silicone band, then it became a product that had a patent. So that has added some value, but it also added quite a lot of stress at the time. We ended up having to give away a batch of those bands that were no good at tournaments and things. We went to quite a lot to sell the product. So if somebody bought a pair of Laceeze bands, we gave them we called them Mark 1 bands, and said, you pop them on your water bottle to identify which water bottle is yours, because they were in an array of colours. But then after, our bands fit from like child size 13, and then we started to get people like, well, have you got anything for smaller boots? Which it's a very tiny market, because at that size, a lot have Velcro instead. But we were like, I wonder if those other bands that we've given away would work. So actually then the last batch we had, we were able to market them as a mini band. So that kind of initial band caused us quite a lot of ups and downs, really.
And at this time, were you still running the contract cleaning business? Was this a side hustle? Or?
No, well, I didn't have that business anymore, although this was very much, it wasn't something that I committed, full time to. It was a bit of sort of those kitchen worktop businesses. I had a co-founder, so we were both involved in businesses with our husbands, and Laceeze was sort of a bit of a side project.
When was the point of time then? I suppose it was 9 years ago, 2016 and 17. But at what point did you go, no, I'm going to really focus on this. I'm going to double down on it. This is going to be something that really becomes my sole focus.
It was actually, my co-founder exited in November 22.
Okay.
And it was kind of at that point, there was a bit of visions were going in different directions that had been happening for a little while. And when she left, I was like, okay, I am going to see what I can do with this now. So that was sort of, it gave me a bit of fire in my belly. Okay. And sort of thought, well, if I can, we've done pretty well doing what we're doing without a huge amount of effort. What can I do if I actually really commit to this and put some more effort into it? And, sort of when you're doing this and you do everything, like the email marketing, you sort of do it. We've obviously got people helping us with fulfillment, but it was a kind of let's just see, let's see if we can look at other marketplaces, look at other product lines that might be interesting. So it's been a good sort of couple of years of me at the helm fully and really committing my energy to it.
Feel now compared to it being a kind of, you call it a kitchen worktop business, because there's a completely different feel to it.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely, it's a lot more consuming now because I think you sort of, you go all in, and then that commitment to treating it like it's a proper business. And I feel like I've got responsibility to the brand now. It's on my head. And and the great thing is, sort of after the first year after she left, we doubled turnover. So I was like, oh, okay, right, here we go. Okay. This is what I saw.
The momentum that you're hoping for.
I think it was building on that during the learning process, really, that happened along the way. But I could definitely see a return on my sort of energy and investment.
And what does the product look and feel like now compared to the original? I know we talked about the ridges, but fundamentally, is the product the same? Have you expanded your product range? Is there other ways you're looking to develop the business?
Yeah. So the Laceeze band itself hasn't changed since then. Like we got it working.
It works.
A few different colours have come out, and we always have a tournament band before any big football tournament. So it's white with just our logos embossed into it, and we just paint into the EE, so it looks like the George's flag. So that's kind of a fun thing to do around tournament time. And I've got some really big ideas for the next World Cup, but that's a year away. We have added additional products into the range. So Laceeze is the sort of what I call the hero product that brings people into our world, and then we're able to tell the story. And then everything else is under the brand name Defiance. Okay. And what I've tried to do with Defiance is create products that, as a mum, as a sideline mum, that I know parents need or want. So not necessarily inventing something new, but just trying to innovate on products. Okay. So, and take away any pain points, things that, so for example, my kids hated, and I know others do, labels. So labels always got cut out, especially in sports clothes, because you're moving around so much. So we removed labels from sports clothing. We bought out some compression clothing, and I used to watch them sort of pulling down all the time. So we just, well, why? Because they're just slightly too short for the purpose. So just make them a little inch longer, and they can just wear them comfortably. And then, so most recently, we've brought out something called Defiance Fresh, which is a product that goes into children's sports shoes to take away the odour and the moisture.
Stop the odour.
Yes. And they've been really, really popular. So again, it's just, that was something I walked into my son's bedroom and there was a smell in there. I was like, I thought we've got pets. I thought it was one of the pets that got trapped in his room, but it was just a pair of football boots, £200 football boots that have been worn a couple of times, got very wet, and then when they dry, it is not a great smell. No. So, yeah.
So great to see you expanding the range and doing all of those things. But most startup product businesses struggle. They might have the best product ever. It might be innovative. It might be different. It might be fulfilling a need, but they struggle to get the product out there into the market and for people to know about the product. So obviously you've been on quite a journey with that. What are some of the lessons that you've learned, some of the mistakes you've made, and what advice would you give to somebody to amplify that brand and product?
So when we first launched, I mean, it was on like a shoestring marketing budget. I mean, I don't even think in the first 6-9 months there was any Facebook advertising at all. So it was all like our own organic posts. So we went in with a brand ambassador program. Okay. So it was like, how can we get to the end user? The end user is the child, but obviously it's going to have to come through the parent or the coach or the team. So we went in with as a brand ambassador program. The product was relatively inexpensive, so we could offer out quite a lot of free product to a parent stroke child that would wear it, try it, and talk about it on their own social media. And my experience of parents that have got kids, they think they're going to be the next Messi, and they are very happy to put their children on a pedestal. So we were inundated with inquiries for people to be brand ambassadors. Okay. But that really did enable us to get some traction quite quickly. We got some organic growth on our socials. And the great thing was the bands are being worn on a Saturday and Sunday, and still to this day, they're our busiest days on the website, because if you've got a couple of people wearing them, the parents then see the benefit of the product. Yeah. And then if you've got 10 other kids on the pitch that aren't wearing the product and the game stops for a lace once and then a lace twice, you hear people go, I should get some Laceeze. So it is it was a really great way of propelling us on a small budget. Then we were able to start sort of pushing meta ads. I had a pushback on Amazon for a while. I didn't want to I didn't want to build on Amazon. I think it was probably a mistake, because people want that prime. I just believe it's become really part of our human nature. Yeah. I think I'm pretty guilty of it. You pull your phone out, Amazon app, there's the product done. Yeah. Especially, I think when it's a lower ticket.
Yeah, convenience, more like, okay.
Absolutely. And obviously, if you've got a Prime subscription, you don't want to pay for postage. With our website, there is a postage cost. It is very small, but unless you're spending X amount of pounds, there is no free.
But it's an easy thing for people to do on the sidelines again, isn't it? Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're on Shopify now, which we weren't on initially. So Shopify is great, especially if you have bought from Shopify websites before. It is almost like 1 or 2 click checkout. But I think we were Wix initially. So it was a kind of enter your name, enter your address. Yeah. And it sounds so simple, but actually people just don't want to do that. Yeah, Prime. So we pushed back from Amazon. When we did go onto Amazon again, we saw great growth quite quickly again. So perhaps really we should have got onto Amazon sooner.
And were you very much a local business then to begin with, as you're gaining that traction? And was there a point in time where you could see that geographical spread?
Yeah, we probably were, just because obviously we had children that were playing locally, but it did happen quite quickly. And then we also sort of noticed that we would get sort of children in America and the Netherlands and Germany, and we're like, oh, okay, let's just send them bands. But actually we were nowhere near ready to roll out to those places. So they were kind of a bit non-starters, I would say, in terms of like, you sort of think, oh, all these countries want our bands. Like, no, we are definitely, that is not going to happen. But it did, from that side of things, it did grow quite quickly. And then we had to be a little bit more specific with sort of ambassadors who were like, well, actually, we can't have any more in Tyneside or wherever, just because they all had the same sort of following. If they're all in the same teams, all the parents would set up, a social media account for their child. So you needed to then start being a bit more clever about the reach with ambassadors.
Be a bit more strategic about it.
But I mean, we still have an ambassador program to date now. Okay. It's a really important, it's an important aspect of the business. It's not so much for marketing, it's more for user generated content,
Okay.
and to keep a community feel to the business, which as we've grown up, I wanted to maintain that. The children love if they've got man of the match or they've scored a hat trick, and the parents have taken the time to share a photo and tag us, and I really want to make sure that we still tap into that, saying like, well done, great weekend, and
Brilliant.
give those shout outs. So keeping a brand ambassador program has enabled us to kind of keep that connection with our audience.
And we should talk about fundraising. And clearly, I assume the early days was very much that bootstrapping. It was just, okay, we'll put a bit of money in, we'll get some momentum, we'll develop a product, we'll sell a few, and as we sell a few, we'll invest back in to marketing, and off we go and get some organic growth. We'll talk about your Dragon's Den experience. Yeah. But at what point did you think, actually, is this 2022 as well? Is this the point you thought, enough of the bootstrapping and we now need to go and...
Yeah, there were a couple of occasions during sort of prior to 2022 where we had an opportunity to take a much bigger order and get some better rates, so we would pop some of our own money in, but it was still relatively insignificant sums of money, sort of a few thousand here and there, just to boost things. So that there was never any huge loan. I tell a fib, we took a bounce back loan during COVID because obviously everything went to
nobody playing.
People were not playing football, and things came to a grinding halt, and we had actually placed a really big order with our supplier, who again were very good to us during that time, with some extended some credit terms. But like most others, when the bounce back loans came available, we were like, this will help us through. Yeah. And we were able to do some fun things during COVID. So we had an account with a sports wholesaler. So we were able to buy some products and pop-up goals and cones. And then we created what we called train at home packs, because kids were stuck at home, and they sold quite well. And that just kept us ticking over,
keeping the brand out there.
Absolutely. And it wasn't even that they weren't our products. I mean, most of them were from a brand called Precision, which are quite known for football equipment, but we were able to just take different elements of their individual products and create sort of like a £50 pack and £100 pack. And then my sons, actually, it kept them busy. I was like, do some videos with certain products so people get some, inspiration of what they can do with this whilst they're stuck at home. And I think, at that time, I remember gym equipment was really, really tough to get hold of, wasn't it? Became like gold dust. So that was quite a fun kind of COVID project.
Different kind of memories, definitely.
Yes, yeah.
But how did the opportunity to come on Dragon's Den come about, Emma?
Yeah, so, I mean, if we had £1 for every time somebody said to us, Laceeze should go on Dragon's Den, it's a Dragon's Den.
You wouldn't need it to fundraise.
Absolutely. It's a Dragon's Den product. But actually, I think now, I don't really know what is a Dragon's Den product. They take such an array of businesses. But so we applied in the early days, so probably either 2017 or 2018, and went through the first round of kind of conversation that you have with them. And they did really like the product. And then they came back and said that we were too early. We didn't have enough turnover for them to consider us, which again was odd, because sometimes they have pre-seed businesses. But we're like, okay, well, we'll carry on doing what we're doing and, see what happens. But when I was then going solo, I was like, is it worth just another? Yeah. I think I'd seen it somewhere if you want to apply, it came up on my social media. I was like, why not have a go? So that, again, I don't even know when I did that, because I applied, put it to bed, totally forgot about it. And it was March 24 that I then was just about to sit down for dinner, that last kind of sweep of the emails, and there was an email from a producer at the BBC saying, can we have a chat? I was like, wow. And literally I was sat there, my husband was there, my sons were sat there, and both my sons went, oh, that's cool. And my husband went, well, you're not going to do that, are you? It was like polar opposite of opinion. I was like, well, I'll have a chat with them. Let's just
see where it goes.
Yeah. And it kind of escalated from there. But I had the first conversation, and then everything with the BBC seems to be like, wait, and then all of a hurry.
Okay.
And that was kind of the Dragon's Den process. So they then said, okay, yep, we love it. We want to do an audition, which is done on Zoom, but all the producers are kind of watching it in. Can you do that in 2 days' time? And you've got to have your pitch by then. I was like, I was going to the States to look at university with my son. And I was like, oh, I just can't do it. It's just that it really was just too rushed for me. So they said, look, go to the States. If you still want to do it when you come back, the doors are open for you. And I don't know, in my mind, I was kind of, maybe this isn't right for me. And then we were in our hotel room, which had like about 5 channels to watch on the television. And a very old episode of Shark Tank came on, which is the US equivalent of Dragon's Den. And then some guys came on and pitched a product that is made of silicone. Well, my product's made of silicone. And the boys just looked at me like, come on, Mum.
Go on.
There's a sign. There's your sign.
Yeah.
So I came back, made the call, said, like, if we can, I'm ready. But I literally then only had a few days to do the audition.
Yeah.
You don't hear anything again for a while. Then they contact you and say, yes, we want you. You have to get through due diligence, which was like a mountain of paperwork, documents, and even things like...
So they vet you completely before they put you in front of an investor?
Everything that you claim, you have to prove. So, for example, on our website, it says Laceeze bands are suitable for use with moulded and studded boots.
Right.
Prove it. I don't know how to prove it.
They
just do. and literally, it kind of, everything that we said, it was like, proof. I was like, thank goodness I'm not like a supplement brand or something making bold claims, because it must be really... And that's the BBC's side of it.
Yeah.
Obviously with the financials, they do check the financials. They're checking your IP. Yeah.
But the investors don't get to see any of that sat on the panel.
No, although we had to print, everything was digital. We had to print everything off, take it in a folder, and it was behind the sort of like the stand that you see on the day. It is there. So if they pull you up on anything, like Deborah Meaden's big one is usually patents and IPs. And if you've got letter of intents or anything, that has to be ready. They didn't actually pull me on any of my IP on the day. So, but it was there. And then if you get an investment, they send the digital files all across to the investor, and if you don't, then you go away with your folder of paperwork. Yes,
all prepared.
Yeah.
So we should really talk about, because I think the bit that's going to be of real value is, that pitch in front of the panel of investors is clearly a critical point, and I can only imagine how fast the heart was beating. But there's got to be some hints and tips that you would give to anybody looking to pitch to an investor. Yeah. So how did you go about putting your pitch together, and what lessons would you share from actually preparing a pitch? So
again, and I don't think what happened with the Dragon's Den for me is probably would be for most people that are preparing a pitch, because I'd like to think people might have a little bit more time. Yeah. So when I said everything with the BBC, you don't hear anything, and then there's a bit of a rush. I had 5 days. I got a call on a Wednesday evening to say, we'd like you to come up for filming. And I said, oh, marvellous. When's that? Yeah, Tuesday. So I was like, as in next Tuesday? They were like, yep. So I was like, oh, okay. So I had you have 2 minutes for the actual introduction of the brand, and the BBC do have to double check everything. So I wrote my pitch. It came back to me with only a few changes, but they were more nuanced in the way that words were kind of delivered. So I then had to learn that word for word just to make sure. Which wasn't
your language, was it?
No.
Because it's the same when you write any speech or presentation.
Absolutely. You have
your nuances of the way you say and act and behave. And I
always think, well, you might have a couple of prompts, a couple of sentences, but then it should just be natural. So I was then desperately trying to learn it without one sounding like a robot. But I thought, well, they're going to question me on the financials. They're going to question me on IP, sales. So I didn't bother with that too much. I felt like I needed to get what we'd already, where we've been, where we're going, and a little bit about sort of, the story behind the brand, that, there is a story. We're very connected with our audience. So I think that got them listening more.
Yeah.
We donate back for every direct sale of our bands, we donate back 25p to grassroots causes. So that could be to a raffle or to a child that can't pay their subs. There's the heart of the business. And I wanted that out as quickly as I could get that over to them, rather than bore them with the figures. And obviously the figures are very important, and I needed to show that there was growth.
Yeah.
So I kind of like broke it down, like, this is the story, this is the brand, this is what it does, this is the growth that we've had over the last few years, just to sort of, get their attention. And then I kind of went back to, this is me, this is why we do it, and these are my ideas for the future, which is obviously quite a lot in 2 minutes, so it has to be quite succinct. But then let them pick up what they see from that. And boy, they picked up a lot. There was a lot of questions. So the next bit was like, it was nearly 2 hours so I had 6 on the panel for my episode. And they just go from, they've chosen who's going to go first, but then from then it's like
relentless.
Yes, it's absolutely is like that. They don't stop.
Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah. And then they start bickering with one another, which is I don't know if that's just done for the comedy of television and the drama.
But when you're there, I mean, I suppose we're sort of talking about them as individuals, but you must see in that 2 hours, we get to see 10 minutes don't we, of a pitch, or 15 minutes, or whatever it may be. But you start to see the dynamics of what's going on in that room and the energy.
Yes.
That must have been fascinating.
Yeah. And you can tell, like, I think if one asks a question that potentially you think the other hadn't thought of that, you can almost see the light bulbs go on. That is, and then they will pick up on that and drill down a little bit. So, and it was like, for me, it was a lot of positivity. Yeah. It was great because Sarah Davies was a dragon and she's a football mum. Yeah. So she got it. Then Joe Wicks was there, who's obviously massively into sport and sort of brand awareness. So he got it. They all got it. They got the product. Yeah. And they got what I was trying to achieve. And I felt like that had obviously come across in the pitch. And that's a winner for me because I've spoken to people before and they're like, I just don't get it. Like, they don't see the value in what we're doing and what we're trying to deliver. So I was quite fortunate there.
A very quick break from this week's episode, which I hope you're enjoying. If you are enjoying, please remember, do help us and help yourself to make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing and reviewing the episode. So that's it. Short interlude from me. Let's get back to the conversation. So 2 hours of relentless questioning.
Yeah.
What did you feel like was that moment when the verdict was really kind of given?
So I'd spent so long learning like all my historical figures, and then I just fell short of what we were forecasting. Right. And that was the moment that they found my weak point. And it was Deborah first, but then Stephen Bartlett just like waded in. And I do also think some of that's obviously done for television. And I'd like to think that if I was pitching to 6 people in a room like this, it would be slightly less kind of I felt it was quite brutal. Yeah. Peter Jones then kind of like stepped in and said, Stephen, just like leave it. So I think they thought, okay, we've had enough of the sort of the bullying and
alpha male kind of place.
Yeah, I was like, thank goodness, like they'd stopped. But then the verdict like started to come, and so from that relentless questioning, they do that. I'm out quite quickly. So okay. Sorry, spoiler alert if anybody is like hasn't seen it, but it went down the line of them like choosing not
And your
to
heart
invest.
just dropping.
And also me thinking, oh, not more to go, and I can get out of here, because it really was that point of like, oh, I was exhausted. And then they went to Tuka, and I thought, oh, here we go, like 2 minutes and I'm gone. But then he actually sees it differently. He's got some really amazing manufacturing contacts that, so straight away he could see something that the others didn't see or have. And he made me an offer, which was, he came in a lot higher than what the equity that we were offering.
Share it with our listeners, because they can go and watch the episode.
Yes,
if they haven't seen it.
I went in asking for £50,000 and I was going to give 10%. I kind of thought in my mind, they never do that. So I thought, well, probably 20, 25. He wanted 40. Right. So I was like, oh, gulp. Went to the back of the room, talked to the wall. I actually went because I wanted some water, like 2 hours of speaking. I was done, and sort of went back and countered him and said, can we go down to 30%, which he accepted. So, so I got a deal. I kind of got a handshake. Yeah. In the den, which is quite a nice,
it's great achievement.
Nice thing. Yeah. And there is an element that the BBC do not guarantee you airtime, even if you've been in the den and filmed. Right. So there is more chance of obviously getting the airtime if you have taken a deal. There is also 50% of these deals don't actually go ahead.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Yeah.
And the airtime thing must be the investment is great. Yeah. But whether people do go on it purely for the airtime, don't they, and the brand awareness. Yeah. And did you see an uptick immediately from being on Dragon's Den?
We actually saw it on the night of airing. So my son put the website on, he put the back end of the website on. And I think prior to airing, literally the minute before, there were about 12 live customers. And then it was like watching live time, people's habits of how they're probably sat watching television and they've got a phone in their hand, because the website just suddenly started spiking. And then when anything negative was said, the visitor account was going down. And then as it was getting sort of towards that end, honestly, so at the final end point, there were 8,800 on the site at that given time. And I don't know, for anybody that knows Shopify, it pings if you get, it's like a ka-ching if you get an order. It sounded like my phone had got frozen. It was ding. It was crazy. Wow. And then that continued for a few days on the website. Our Amazon sales spiked our Amazon sales spiked so much that Amazon withheld a percentage of our next disbursement just in case. Yeah. So they hold back a certain amount, obviously for returns and things. And I think because it was such a dramatic increase, they held back a much bigger percentage for 2 weeks. So it was quite dramatic. And then other things that came with it was more sort of the credibility of the brand. There were people wanting to do brand partnerships with us, people that we probably couldn't have dreamt of working with. So prior to that, and I think that's probably the most important long-term effect.
Because that's a proper legacy, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're talking with Power League. So they have lots of five-a-side pitches all around the country. They now, Nike are their kit partner, but they want to stock Laceeze bands. They want to stock the Defiance Fresh. So there's certain things they can't stock of ours because it would be in conflict with Nike's don't products, want to be upsetting Nike as your main brand.
You want to land on your doorstep, is it?
Again, he said, I've just seen you. I've just seen you on television. Yeah. There's somebody else that they have quite a lot of licensing agreements with Premier League clubs, and they want to help us get the bands with branded into Premier League clubs. Again, what we probably wouldn't have even considered that as a route to market. And I don't know, it's just people feel a connection perhaps with me and the brand and want this, the people I want to do this with you, we want to help you, and that's been really amazing.
Brilliant, isn't it? And I think people do talk about that kind of power of Dragon's Den to do all of those kind of things. So where have you got to? When was the episode aired, and where have you got to with the actual investment?
It was aired in January.
Okay.
It was filmed in the summer.
So January 25.
Yeah, 25. Filmed in July 24. You have to keep it under wraps until you know you're
Was
airing.
That difficult?
Really difficult. Yeah, it's a long time to keep it under wraps for. Yeah, so it literally was just in a circle. It was my marketing lady that knew, and like my family. That literally was it. Yeah, and then even when they say you can tell the world, but you can only use this photo. Well, they gave me 2 photos. There's one will never see the light of day. It's a terrible photo. So there's only one photo as far as I'm concerned.
Use, yeah.
But Tuka was great. So I think like a few days afterwards, he phoned me and said, already working on things with my team. And this is literally just like a gentleman's handshake at this stage. He visited Sports Direct without any deal being done. He had us an order from Sports Direct without any deal being done. So he's a very sort of honest, trusting.
Honourable, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and just do my best.
Yeah, and at this stage, the due diligence process with them starts all over again because obviously they're looking at they're delving deeper into the financials of the company as opposed to sort of the prove it bit that the BBC had to do. Where we're at, I probably don't know how much I can say on a public. We've tweaked things a little bit. I'm just gonna put it like that. But I am working with Tuka and his team, and they've been absolutely amazing. I think the one thing that everybody says about him is he always says, I can get this made in China cheaper. He has got some really great contacts. He's got a sourcing guy who's based in Hong Kong. They've got about 130 people on the ground in China. So anything that you do get made, you can probably get made a lot cheaper by them. So we've just sent all of our inventory to them and said, well, take a look.
Off you go.
And, some of the products like our outfield gloves, they've come back and said, you literally were overpaying. And I didn't think that I was. I actually thought I'd negotiated quite a good...
I suppose you're buying in low volumes and you're still buying relatively low volumes, but you're part of their group, aren't
Absolutely, yeah. So, and then what they can see is that, well, actually, we can help you with your margins. Therefore, you can offer them to retail. You can be more competitive from that side. So the volumes are going to go up. We'll have more advertising budget. Yeah. So there's so many benefits to having them helping us. So that's been really, really useful.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And how's it felt? Because that's obviously put some growth into the business, which is great from a sales perspective. But with growth comes challenges, doesn't it? In terms of how do you grow the team? How do you grow your own infrastructure, capacity? Yeah. How's that part of the journey been for you in recent months?
Yeah. So that's interesting because obviously this all came about with kind of rises in national insurance and things. So suddenly taking on team members has, it's just not quite as appealing. No. So we try to use a lot of freelancers, although they would be freelancers that then have, an email address from our company. So they look like they're part of our team. So we're still very streamlined. But the one thing that we definitely realize after Dragon's Den, it's getting on top of the figures and the numbers. So we don't need a financial director, but we are looking at getting somebody in on a fractional basis. And I think that will be really quite powerful for us because they can see potentially mistakes that are being made or things that we can do and change.
Just numbers and the commerciality of the numbers, which you either sometimes see or don't see, don't you?
You're a numbers man. You would probably take a look at things and see them differently. I'd like to say I'm probably I'm the creative one. Hey, that's what I love. That's where I flourish. So, and I do think it's been a question of kind of moving myself away from being in the coalface a little bit, but and just trying to find the right people. And that's a daily challenge in knowing where I should be sitting and having the right people sort of
how do you play to your strengths?
Absolutely.
And cover the weaknesses type of thing.
Yeah. So and obviously constantly just you're always being pulled. I'm always listening to podcasts and doing research and things, and you think, oh, that could be a great
shiny
thing.
new
And yeah,
thing.
let's do that. It really is. It really is.
Shiny
Like, no,
new
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I mean, we were talking briefly before we started recording, but like TikTok, that's the shiny new thing. That's the $1 billion worth of commerce going through, TikTok shop. So it's a massive thing that that is a shiny new thing that I'm kind of really researching and playing with a little bit.
And you've got somebody in the business that's actually trying to implement and engage.
Yeah. So a lady that is actually, and she is an employee actually, she's not a freelancer, but so she works in the business, helping with orders, dispatching, a little bit customer service. But she said, well, I watch TikTok shop all the time. This is how it works. I'll go live. I'll do it. Like, she was confident enough to do it. So I didn't have to, employ an actor or, presenter. And, I mean, it's early days, so we're not really seeing any sort of massive return on the investment, but then we haven't put a huge investment into it.
But that's a challenge with a consumer product business, isn't it? You've got to keep to the forefront of marketing and new ideas. Yeah. Because what was working 2 years ago is probably dead in the water by now.
And I do think some of these brands that jumped on TikTok and live shopping 12, 18 months ago, they're seeing like rocketed growth. They've got that brand awareness. So I think if we can just tap into just to a little bit of that, we've got brand awareness through, what we do now, but we can just get some of those customers that are sat there just watching TikTok live all the time. Yeah, it's an interesting concept.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Definitely. So shall we wrap up with some quick fire questions?
Yeah, I can do.
Let's find out a bit more about you. What's the one thing you wish you knew before you started Laceeze?
I think just don't go in and try and do everything yourself. I'm a bit like, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can do that. That is my worst habit.
All of a sudden your to-do list is just like...
Yeah. I actually catch myself sometimes going, yeah, I'll do that. No.
You're still doing it now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So if somebody could have like that mute button for me, that would be great. Yeah.
Definitely. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Yeah. Good morning habits?
Yeah. Get up. I've got 2 dogs, 2 cats. So like they're the ones that kind of get me up, go and feed them.
Yeah.
Coffee outside, and I've stopped looking at my phone in the morning now as well. That's been brilliant. 10-15 minutes, just go and stand outside, suck in the fresh air, drink your coffee, then go and look at the phone.
Take a breath.
Yeah, because it was it's an alarm clock. So you pull it over, it's like, oh, what's happened overnight? All those notifications, they can wait. There's nothing.
Particularly when you're running a consumer business with lots of things and platforms online, it must just become all consuming.
And I don't think you realise you're doing it. That's the problem. So that 10-15 minutes, just not, we've got the rest of the day to consume all that content. Yeah.
Definitely. Favourite business book or podcast?
I love Guy Raz, How I Built This.
Okay.
And that's a real inspiration for me. Yeah. Obviously those businesses are just like huge things they've done.
There's lessons in that for us all, isn't there?
And I think, and the lesson in that I always find is that everybody's had, something's gone wrong. They've had that dip. There's been a supply chain issue or something. I'm like, oh yeah, we've had that. It's smaller scale, but we've had it. Yeah. So yeah.
See those issues. The one thing that keeps you awake at night at the moment?
I suppose a couple of weeks ago it was tariffs,
right?
But that all seems to have settled. So yeah, and again, I always think actually what you worry about, we've had COVID, we've had tariffs, there's always something, and actually when you look back and reflect, you find a way of pivoting and getting through those things. So this is just another it's just another hurdle.
It was what it did feel like for product businesses that we act for and represent and are a sounding board for. Like this brick wall just appeared though.
Yeah.
And you're running headlong into it.
Yeah, definitely. I do think those sometimes like just try and just disconnect from the news a little bit, because it was changing so quickly. It was very overwhelming. And actually if you sort of, I don't know, if you just locked yourself in a dark room for 2 weeks, then come back out, it's actually, that's okay. Resolved. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. No tariffs.
Should have gone on holiday.
Yes. Yeah. Somewhere where there was no internet connection. Yeah.
Let's do that one. Favourite place to go on holiday?
I've only been once. I've been very fortunate to go, but the Maldives, and that is like, beautiful. That's disconnect. Like you come away from there feeling like a new person.
Brilliant. Best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Oh, goodness me. I've had so many. I think the best piece was put yourself out there. Do not hide behind the brand. We saw huge changes when initially it was just, this is Laceeze, this is the brand.
Yeah.
When we started going, well, I'm a sports mum, I'm Emma, and I have Laceeze, people connected with us.
Wow.
And
is that one of the changes since 2022?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And how did it feel putting yourself out there?
Oh, that first time you create an Instagram, cringe, don't watch it back, don't worry about it, put it out there because, it will resonate with somebody and that's what it does do. And yet now I don't mind. Like, initially I used to make sure my makeup's done, my hair's done. I don't care now. Honestly, it is me.
It's not like that Dragon's Den second photo that never gets to see the light of day.
Yeah. No, I just think, just be you. Be you. Be you. We don't all look beautifully made up all the time. So let the world see it. The rawness of you sometimes.
Brilliant. And what's your ambition then? I'm not expecting this to be a quick fire one. We'll start to just round up. So what's your ambition for Laceeze now?
Continue to grow. We're looking at new markets. So America is starting to grow. And I think if we can really fast track that before they take the World Cup next year is going to be good. I don't ever really have the answer. People go, oh yeah, I'm going to sell in 5 years or, that's my exit plan. I haven't got that clear in my mind yet. Okay. My boys are one's going to be leaving school next year. The other one's at uni. Well, they want to kind of take this on. Who knows whether they'll take it on and I'll take a step back or somebody will come knocking at the door. And, want to buy it. And then maybe it comes at the right time where I feel like I think I've got a lot more to offer at the moment, but I do think there also comes a time when you think, well, I've taken it to this level and that's as far as I can go.
This is I can do it,
Yeah, but there's other people that can.
But in the short term, it's all about momentum and harnessing the power.
And it literally is, I feel like I'm on a bit of a faster track at the moment.
And how are you balancing, particularly since January and the airing of the episode, that business life with personal life?
Yeah, that's tough sometimes. You've got to kind of have a word with yourself sometimes because I think you can get really involved and before you know it, you've been sat at the desk for 8 hours. So I now really tap into how I feel. So it was there was one day this week and it just felt like everything I was doing, I wasn't really achieving very much. And I just closed the laptop down. This is one of the benefits of being self-employed. There was nothing that needed to be done so urgently. And I chucked the dogs in the car and I went for a walk down the river. Yeah. And so I think just try to be really in tune with yourself and how you feel. Because actually some days it's like pushing water uphill and you're not really achieving anything. So I try to keep fit, make sure that I go walking every day, but get to the gym as much as I can just to look after myself. Eat well, all the normal things. Yeah. And
our final question on the Evolve to Succeed podcast is, what's your definition of, because I think we've had some insight to this, Emma, but what's your definition of personal success rather than business success?
I suppose it's just having that balance, and being able just to take some time to do the things that you love to do. We can get so engrossed and sucked into the day-to-day life, and before you know it, a week's gone past, a month's gone past. And I've been very conscious of myself and being able to just take time, I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go play tennis, do things that fill me up. You forget sometimes who you are as a mom and as a business person. My boys are getting older now, so it's kind of back to my time. Do I fill all that time with running the company, or do I fill it with the things that I used to love doing? Yeah. And it's kind of pushing myself back to how I was 20 years ago.
Brilliant. Exciting times.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Emma, for being a great guest on the
thank you.
podcast. If people want to hear more or find out more about Laceeze, where can they go?
Yeah, so Laceeze is on all the usual channels, so Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. And then I'm quite active on LinkedIn as well. So they can find me, Emma Burke, on there.
Perfect. Thank you for being a great guest on the podcast.
That's good.
So what a lovely conversation with Emma, and what a journey she's been on since 2016. And we learned so much about her journey and so much about how you can get inspiration for a product just stood on the sidelines watching your sons play football. What a great story, and what an exciting time for Laceeze as a business. We wish Emma luck, and she has been a great guest on the podcast. So once again, have you enjoyed the episode? If so, please help us subscribe to the Evolve to Succeed podcast on whatever your favourite channel is. And importantly, find out about how we help businesses start, grow and exit by going to evolveadvisory.co.uk. That's it for now. See you on the next episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast.